Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bible study. I'm R.K. Brown, and I am glad to be with you. Just looking at my meter over there. Make sure I had audio. I'm going to jump right into the scripture here. Check this out. Proverbs chapter 6, verse 4. Give not sleep to thine eyes, nor slumber to thine eyelids. Deliver thyself as a roe, which is a deer, of course, from the hand of the hunter, and as a bird from the hand of the fowler. And this is the verse I want to concentrate on, or these verses. Go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways, and be wise, which having no guide, overseer, or ruler, provideth her meat in summer, and gathereth her food in the harvest. How long wilt thou sleep, O sluggard? When wilt thou arise out of thy sleep? Yet a little sleep, yet a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep. So shall thy poverty come as one that travaileth, and thy want as an armed man. So obviously, if you're lazy, basically what that scripture is saying is if you're lazy, you're going to pay for it by way of poverty. The Lord does provide for us, but He expects us to go out and work. You know, I could say that, and like I said, obviously the scripture I want to focus on here is verses 6 through 8. Go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways and be wise, which having no guide, overseer, or ruler, provideth her meat in the summer and gathereth her food in the harvest. So a more modern day proverb might be, make hay while the sun shines. And it appears to me, I could be wrong, I know the president said he's not going to shut the country down again, but it appears to me as we're having a COVID spike that even if the president doesn't officially shut things down nationally, I think a lot of the cities might. I know a lot of people that watch me are musicians that play on Broadway because that's where I work. That's how I make my living. So it looks as though we may be in a situation that we were in before. I can't say that for sure, but what I'm telling you is consider the ant and do what the ant does. Make hay while the sun shines, work while there's work. If somebody calls you and offers you a gig, even if it's not something that you might want to normally do, go do the gig. Go do the job. If you work somewhere or if you get some kind of odd job that you know how to do, if you get some work presented to you, go do the work, get the money, and stash the money away for hard times. Get you some groceries if you can get some. Let's not have the toilet paper fiasco like we had before, but get you some groceries. Get you some money set back so that you can pay your rent. All that kind of thing. Another verse is Proverbs 30:25. The ants are a people not strong, yet they prepare their meat in the summer. Make hay while the sun shines. And, in this particular time that we're in, some people would say clown world. I would say pandemic world. You better be ready. You better be ready for what comes at you. I personally consider this time of working that we're presently in, that we've been able to go and make some money. I consider it a window that the Lord has opened for us. So go and get the money and save you some money. Don't go and blow your money, is what I'm trying to tell you. Now, I want to read a story that, I have talked about these verses before, but I want to read a whole chapter about a man named Joseph, a young man who was sold by his brothers into bondage or slavery, and he lived in the house of this man named Potiphar, who was the captain of the guard. And he did such a great job for Potiphar that Potiphar didn't have to worry about anything about his household. He just put it in the hands of Joseph, and then Potiphar's wife decided to make moves on Joseph and try to get him to commit adultery with her, and Joseph wouldn't have anything to do with it, so he's put in prison. And while he's in prison, there's a couple of men that are put in there that work for the Pharaoh, the butler and the baker, and Joseph interprets their dreams for them, and the dreams came to pass. And Joseph told the butler, when you go back and get in your position with Pharaoh, remember me. But the butler forgot for 2 whole years. But then finally, Pharaoh had a dream, and that's where we pick up the story in Genesis 41. Genesis 41, verse 1. And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored kine and fat-fleshed, and they fed in a meadow. Kine, K-I-N-E, is the, basically the King James era English word for cows. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and lean-fleshed, and stood by the other kine upon the brink of the river. And the ill-favored and lean-fleshed kine did eat up the 7 well-favored and fat kine. So Pharaoh awoke, and he slept and dreamed the second time, and behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk, rank and good. And behold, 7 thin ears, blasted with the east wind, sprung up after them. And the 7 thin ears devoured the 7 rank and full ears, and Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. My watch just fell off my arm. It came unbuckled, so I just let it fall to the floor. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all the wise men thereof, and Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. Then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. Remember, I told you that the butler, when he was being let out of prison, Joseph said, remember me when you go back into your position before Pharaoh. And he forgot for 2 full years. So he said, I now remember my faults this day. But God had worked this out. So God let Joseph languish in that prison for 2 years. Now, Joseph was in charge of the prisoners. He worked for Potiphar. He still worked for the same man who was the captain of the guard, only now he was working for him in the prison house. And so Joseph did such good work for Pharaoh that even though he thought that Joseph had, made a move on his wife, which was not the case at all, but even though he thought that, he knew that Joseph was a good worker, so ultimately he put Joseph in charge of the prisoners. So Joseph was in charge of the prisoners, and he said to that man, remember me when you come before Pharaoh. And the man forgot for 2 full years. God was willing to let Joseph sit in prison for 2 full years for such a time as what we're reading about now. This is the butler talking. Pharaoh was wroth with his servants, and put me in ward in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief butler. And we dreamed a dream in one night, I and he. We dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream. And there was there with us a young man, an Hebrew servant, to the captain of the guard, and we told him, and he interpreted to us our dreams, to each man according to his dream he did interpret. And it came to pass as he interpreted to us. So it was. Me he restored unto mine office, and him he hanged. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon, and he shaved himself and changed his raiment, and came in unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret, and I have heard say of thee that thou canst understand a dream to interpret it. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. I love that Joseph didn't just say God is going to interpret the dream, but he said God will give Pharaoh an answer of peace. I believe that Pharaoh was a righteous man. I believe that this particular Pharaoh was a good man, even though, even though Joseph was in his prison and all that kind of stuff. I believe that these people were at work, they may have already been believers in the one true God, but at worst, God had opened their hearts so that they could hear the truth. Let me see if I can find my verse here. Okay, yeah. Verse 17. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, in my dream, behold, I stood upon the bank of the river, and behold, there came up out of the river 7 kine, fat-fleshed and well-favored, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them, poor, and very ill-favored, and lean-fleshed, such as I never saw in all the land of Egypt, for badness. And the lean and the ill-favored kine did eat up the first 7 fat kine. And when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them, but they were still ill-favored as at the beginning. So I awoke. So it's pretty telling when the 7 lean cows ate the 7 fat cows. Now we're talking about skinny cows, and yet it couldn't be even known that the 7 skinny cows ate the 7 fat cows. They didn't have a bulge in their belly or anything. That is very significant to what's about to happen. And I saw in my dream, and behold, 7 ears of corn came up, and 1 stalk, full and good. And behold, 7 ears withered, thin, and blasted with the east wind sprung up after them. And the thin ears devoured the 7 good ears. And I told this unto the magicians, but there was none that could declare it to me. And Joseph said unto Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh is one. God hath showed Pharaoh what he is about to do. God has showed Pharaoh what God, is about to do. And I definitely believe that, I call this a pandemic. I definitely believe that the virus is real. No doubt about it. But I definitely believe that the powers that be are not letting a good crisis go to waste. I think they are fully taking advantage of this. I think they've been waiting for something like this. They've made plans for something like this. Go look up something called Episode 201. They have been waiting for this for a long time. And they got their crisis. And they have leaned heavily on us to shut down the economies of the whole world. This thing has affected the whole world. So I said all that to say I believe it is a pandemic, but God has done this thing. I've showed in other teachings where even if evil men do a thing, it's God that's either allowing it to be done or even putting it on their heart to do it, to punish his people when they do wickedly. When his people go out of the way of righteousness, God allows evil men to punish them. That's how God does it. As David said one time in one of the Psalms, deliver me from the wicked, which is thy sword. He was praying to the Lord and he said, deliver me from wicked men. They are the sword in your hand, Lord. Let me see if I can find where I was. Okay, the dream is 1, verse 27. And the 7 thin and ill-favored kind that came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 empty ears blasted with the east wind shall be 7 years of famine. So he's saying there's a famine coming. And I'm telling you that there may be a small famine coming in the fact that we may not be able to get money to buy things that are there. Now, there may be another real famine coming down the line, because famine follows pestilence in the scriptures, it seems like. So we may at some point face a real legitimate famine, whether it's man-made or nature-made or a combination of the two. I know not, but we may. And if we do, I'll talk about that at that time. But I'm talking about a famine of being able to have resources to get what you need, even if what you need is out there. So what I'm trying to tell you is prepare yourself. I'm giving you all the scripture to tell you to prepare yourself, because we may have another shutdown, another quote-unquote lockdown, if you will. I think it's probably likely that we will. I could be wrong. Don't go back and say, RK said we're going to have a shutdown and we didn't have one. I think we will. I could be wrong. Verse Oh no. I have skipped over some verses. Let me see if I can find where those verses might be. Verse 28. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he showeth unto Pharaoh. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt. And there shall arise after them 7 years of famine, and all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. He said all the land of plenty will be forgotten because basically they're going to run out of stuff. It's going to be forgotten that there was a land of plenty because the famine is going to consume the land. Now, I know this is an extreme verse, but I'm telling you that this chapter is teaching us to prepare. Verse 31, and the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of that famine following, for it shall be very grievous. And for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. I quote very often verses in the Bible that tell us that every matter is established in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, and God showed Pharaoh 2 different dreams that said the same thing, and Joseph said it's because the thing is established. Let every matter be established in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, right? He showed it to him twice. It was definitely going to happen. Verse 33. Now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years. So you see, he's telling Pharaoh to appoint somebody to go and gather resources. I'm telling you, go and gather your resources. If you get a chance to work, take it, even if it's work you don't want to do. Go and take the work and save your money. Pay your bills, obviously, get your groceries, but hang on to your money because you may need it in the future and not have any if you don't put some away. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I'm using these verses to tell you that. Okay, now we're back over here to verse 35 where I just skipped over some verses. And let them gather all the food of those good years that come and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. And that food shall be for store to the land against the 7 years of famine. You hear what I said? I'm going to read it again. Verse 35, and let them gather food for those good food of those good years that come and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. And that food shall be for store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through the famine. So, I'm not telling you that there's going to be 7 years of famine or anything like that, so don't be confused. I'm just telling you that we may get into some rough times here coming up again, like we did. But I'm going to tell you this right now. I'm a tither. The Bible, the only place in the Bible that the Bible says to prove God or to test God is in Malachi chapter 3, where he says, put the tithe in the storehouse and prove me now and see if I don't throw open the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing that you can't contain, and I'll stop the destroyer from destroying your crops. So if you're not a tither, then, all bets are off. I can't guarantee that the Lord will continue to provide for you in a steady way. He's going to provide for his people, but if you're a tither, then he's going to provide for you in a steady way. And I say that because y'all know that I'm a legally blind man. I don't have work that I can go out and do. I don't know how to do odd jobs and stuff like that. I know how to play bass and guitar and drums and sing. I know how to record. I know how to play gigs. That's what I know how to do. I have been working every week during the shutdown. I have made some money. I have made enough to keep my bills paid. Now, my overhead's fairly low, but God will take care of you where you are. Whatever your overheads are, God is going to take care of you as long as you don't have stupid things going on. As long as you're not, in debt up to your eyeballs in a ridiculous way. God will take care of you and supply what you need. He's able to supply all your needs according to his riches and glory, not all your greeds. But God will take care of you. So I'm telling you, give God his. The 10% of your income doesn't belong to you. It belongs to God. It's not like you're giving him something. It's like you're making sure that the house of God is taken care of, being the church that you go to, by God's money that you are in possession of, that you go out and earn for him. He provides you work, and he asks for 10%, and the 10% is not yours, it's his. And I'm telling you that I have been taken care of over this whole first lockdown, and I'm going to be taken care of over the second lockdown, because I trust the Lord, and he is going to take care of me, and I do not steal from him. I tithe, and that's a big deal. All right, let's keep going. Verse 37. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, Can we find such a one as this is, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, Forasmuch as God has showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all the people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, See, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. Can you imagine that a man came out of prison? He'd been in prison for quite a number of years at this point. I think 13 years, something like that. And he came out of prison. He went into slavery when he was, well, I don't know how long he was in prison, but he was in slavery the whole time for 13 years. He was 17 when he went in, and he was 30 when he stood before Pharaoh, as we will see. So he goes from being a lowly slave in prison to ruling over a whole country. That's amazing to me. God can and will do things like that. We see it in the scriptures. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in a vesture of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. The reason Pharaoh took off his ring is because it's a signet ring. It had Pharaoh's mark on it, and they would write some decree, some letter or something like that, and they would seal it with wax. And while the wax was still a little bit wet, Pharaoh would take his ring and put it into the wax and put his signet, if you will, his signature by his ring, his signet, into that wax, and that would let the people know that that was decreed by Pharaoh. So he gave Joseph the ability to speak for him in all matters, and said, Only I in the whole kingdom will be above you. Verse 43, and he made him to rule in the second and he made him to ride, in the second chariot which he had, and they cried before him, Bow the knee, and he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zethpethpaneah, and he gave him a wife, Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On. On was a city in Egypt. Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt, and Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh, and went throughout all the land of Egypt. And in the 7 plenteous years, the earth brought forth by handfuls. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities. The food of the field which was round about every city laid he up in the same. And Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea, very much until he left numbering, for it was without number. And unto Joseph was born, I'm going to stop right here. So he gathered up just corn like the sand of the sea. He gathered up to be able to support not only the land of Egypt, but as you would see if you continued to read the story, all the countries around about Egypt. He gathered up so much food that he was able to sell all the food to Egypt and acquire all the money and goods of the people of the countries around about them. So Egypt became a great nation because of Joseph, even greater than it was before. And so he just gathered and gathered and gathered and gathered. And I'm not telling you to be selfish. I'm not telling you to be a hoarder, but I'm telling you to store up. The Bible gives us good example here that we should store up for a lean time, if you will. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came, which Aseneth, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bare unto him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God, said he, hath made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. And the name of the second called he Ephraim, for God hath caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. And the 7 years of plenteousness that was in the land of Egypt were ended. So the 7 years of plenteousness were ended. In our time, and the second lockdown came. And the 7 years of dearth began to come, according as Joseph had said. And the dearth was in all lands, but in the land of Egypt there was bread. And when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried unto Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, Go unto Joseph. What he saith to you, do. And the famine was over all the face of the earth. And Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold unto the Egyptians. And the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt, and all countries came unto Egypt to Joseph for to buy corn, because that the famine was so sore in all lands. Except I've got a feeling that it's not going to go that way this time. I saw a video where somebody was reading a statement from a woman who works for the United Nations that said, yes, we use food to control people. What of it? Well, I do believe that at some point in the future, the United Nations is going to use food to control people, and that is what is ultimately going to cause people to have to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead, and that no man may buy or sell, save he that hath the mark. That day is coming. But I'm just talking about an immediate thing here, where I'm telling you, prepare yourself. Be ready for a rough time, because we may very well get into one here coming up. Like what we've just been through, except maybe more, because of the protests, and even maybe just because the country has opened up, we are experiencing lots more people testing positive for COVID-19. Now, also the fact that they're testing a lot more, and the testing continues to rise and rise. They are testing more, so that's one reason. But I have a niece that is an RN. And she told me that, the hospitals are beginning to fill up with COVID patients. So people are getting sick from COVID-19. COVID-19 is a real thing. I believe, like I said earlier, that the powers that be have not let a good crisis go to waste. But it is a real disease. It is a real thing that's going on. And it looks to me like, and I could be wrong, this whole lesson could be a throwaway. I could be wrong, and maybe we won't go back into lockdown. I just kind of have a feeling about it. So, if you quote me and say, RK said we were going to have a lockdown for sure, that's incorrect. But I'm saying that I think we probably will at some point. Even if, like I said, even if Donald Trump doesn't shut down the country nationally, I believe that many cities will shut down, and for sure, the liberal cities, the Democrat-run cities will surely shut down because they want to rule their people. They want to control their people, and they will surely, no doubt, shut down at any given opportunity. If they see a chance to do it, they're going to do it. So prepare yourself. Do all the work that you can do. Make hay while the sun shines, as they say. Do all the work that you can do, and don't blow any money. Save some money so that you'll have to pay your bills, your electric bill, your rent, or your house payment, or your car payment, or, whatever kind of things you got going on. I know this is kind of an odd message, but I just kind of felt like this is what I needed to teach tonight. So I hope it helps somebody. That's my lesson. If you're watching by Facebook and or YouTube, then do as the kids say and smash the like button. And, of course, go to my YouTube page, if I can find the button there. And it looks like I have 218 subscribers. Hooray, I finally made it past that 215 mark. So y'all subscribe to my YouTube page. It's also called Bible Study with R.K. Brown. And I always upload these messages after I get done broadcasting them on Facebook. So that's pretty much my lesson. I hope you have a blessed week. I hope we don't have a lockdown, but if we do, I want you to be prepared. All right? So this is Bible Study with R.K. Brown. Lord willing, I'll see you next week. Until then, may the Lord bless you abundantly and go with you wherever you go. Keep the Bible in your mind. All right? Good night. God bless you.